Alright y'all, Bubba here again. So I'm going to do a quick video on dyeing a belt white. Now, when I was asked to do this, I was very skeptical. And let me explain to you why I was very skeptical. Because we start off with a leather that's like a light brown color, you know the color of leather, and trying to make it white. They don't make a good water or alcohol dye. What I've had to use is an acrylic leather paint or acrylic paint. And I will tell you, I called several people, I messaged several people, I YouTubed several videos, and then I eventually just said, all right, let's do it. Send it, load it up, let's go. And I'm quite happy with it, but I want to tell y'all a few things. What I used was a little bowl and a cheap little brush you can get at the Dollar General or whatever dollar store you got. I think it was like 3 or 4 for whatever, it doesn't matter. And this little bowl here. And I started off with the white acrylic paint. And what I did is I put about 80% water, 90% water to a splash of acrylic paint. And then I would do a coat and let it dry, or use a blow dryer to speed up the drying process. And I just kept doing that. 2 or 3 coats, 4 coats, maybe 5 coats. Sometimes if I was bored, 6 coats of that 1% solution. And eventually, now I'm gonna show you this. I don't know if you can see it, I hope you can. This is like 60-40, where it's starting to turn white. And it gets, at first, a weirdish gray color. But I would just mix the solution and keep going. Mix the solution and keep going. Let it dry, take your blow dryer. And I'm gonna tell you a hint of what I did. When I was drying it with the blow dryer, you would see some of the acrylic caked up where it had separated from the water. And what I would do is I'd take my brush very lightly and I would just come down it and knock and smooth that out. And then let it dry or blow dry it or come back the next day once it was completely dry and add the next coat. And it almost seemed like the first coat kind of got the leather ready for it. It's like, oh, we're dampening the leather. Now the next coat's going to soak in better. That happened almost every single time. Now you can see it now. Look, this thing is white. You know, next to a napkin. It's white. It takes a lot of time. I don't know exactly how many coats of paint I did on this thing. But I want to say an average of 6 to 8 coats a night for about 4 nights straight now. That's like 30, 40 coats of paint. And I eventually got to where it was like 90% paint and 10% water, and that's the last coat you're seeing now. Now the bottom doesn't take it as well. On the suede side, that took a lot more convincing. That took a lot more convincing. It's still white. Now don't mind, I just put some oil on it so it looks a little bit different, but it's still white. And I will tell you something I did, just for all you people out there. You've seen, where's it at? Okay. I'm sure you've seen these little things for your white tennis shoes. Well, when the bottom side, the inside of the belt was almost white, it just wouldn't go anymore. And I could either paint it with a thick layer of acrylic and hope it doesn't crack out, which on my test piece I did. I tested on my test piece, and on my test piece with just a thick coat of acrylic, I sat here and did like this with my thumb. I don't know, 5-10 minutes. I was watching a video or something. And I can see a good bit of leather through the cracks. So I was like, I don't like that. So the missus went to the store and got some of this shoe whitening, polishing, and it says there are white colorants in it or something like that. I can't see it, it's very small. Yeah, well, it's got white colors in it. So what I did is I did a few coats of this on the bottom. I didn't do any of this on the top. The whole entire top was all the acrylic paint. It took it fine, it did its job. The bottom, I had to use some of this on the final, I don't know, 2 or 3, I guess you would say, percentages. Because above 70% water, dye, 70% paint, and 30% water, it just wasn't taking it. It just wasn't doing it. It was staying the same. It would just run. It just wasn't doing it. Maybe it was something I did wrong. I don't know. But let's back up to the beginning. The first thing you want to do when you go to start to dye this thing is take you some alcohol. Get you a bottle of alcohol somewhere, and a dauber, one of these, and you wipe the whole thing down with alcohol, and then you don't touch it. You let it completely dry. What this does is it stands the hairs up in the leather, and it's basically a deglazer. You can buy deglazers. They sell them on the internet. Hey, boy. You having fun down there? Old bulldog's having a time with his tail down there. But once you alcohol this, the hairs will stand up. Don't touch it. Don't get it oily. Once it's completely dry, then you start doing your coats. Now, like I said, this is about halfway there. And eventually, you'll come in here the next morning when it'll be dry, and it's like, holy cow, that looks white almost. You start getting a little excited. But it takes time. Don't rush it. Because all my test pieces, I rushed a couple. I did a few a little bit different. I did some with straight acrylic paint. All of my test pieces were garbage until I did it the way I did the belts. Slow and steady. 4 or 5 coats, but let it dry between each coat. Don't rush it. Let it dry. You can rush it a little bit with the blow dryer, but when you do that, I'm telling you what's going to happen. You're going to get little pieces of acrylic paint here and there, and you're going to see them, and they're going to cake up. And if that happens, take your brush and lightly trim them out. And then let it dry. And then do your next coat. And I want to say I probably had 6 to 8 coats per percentage. And I jumped up about 15 to 20% every time. Because I got lines on here I could see. So I kind of guesstimated pretty close. Now I got a scale I could have used, but I didn't. So I guesstimated. And that's about where I was at. And I was debating on making this video or not, but since this thing whooped my butt so hard for so long and I actually got it whipped, I figured I'd let y'all know. Don't get mad with it. If this is something you want to do, just be patient. Know what battle you're getting into before you start doing this. Now I've got to seal it, and I've got Angelus High Gloss Acrylic Finisher. And I'm going to use this on my test piece. It looks good. It passed the bend test. You can't oil it. I usually treat my belts with neat's foot when I'm done. All the acrylic paint that you just put on it will not allow the neat's foot oil to penetrate right off the bat. But the test pieces, once they've been worked a good bit, you can get some of the neat's foot oil in it. So I'm going to have to give this to the guy with the instructions that once you break the belt in a little bit, you might want to oil it. So that's kind of where we're at. Now I'm about to start doing the finisher. If y'all have any questions about this, if I missed anything, leave a comment below and ask me, because I have spent over a week or so on this thing trying to figure it out. Probably, now that's a week or so just doing the belt. My test strips were weeks before that. I did a lot of prep to try to figure out this and a lot of videos. So if you stumble across this video trying to learn how to dye something white, some leather white, get with me. I'll help you out. If I forget anything, just message me. I'll tell you. The burnishing of the edges. Make sure you don't use the same one you got covered in black. Note to self. Don't use this one. Get you a different one or a different tool. Find you a slicker or clean the mess out of this. Because the black that's on here will transfer to the white on the belt. As soon as you touch it, it will transfer. I'm not going to tell you how I know, but trust me, it will transfer. So I ended up having to use some of those little kits that I got to put on my drill bit, wash them up real good, and did it like that. And that's about all I could think to tell you. So now I'm going to get started with this finisher, and I'm going to seal this thing up, and hopefully the gentleman will love it. Hopefully the sealer will look pretty. I got the high gloss because this is a dress belt. The gentleman's going to be wearing it out. And I'm going to put a bunch of conchos, some fleur-de-lis conchos in it, if y'all want to see that. Wow, hold on. Fingers don't work. Fleur-de-lis conchos. And some other rivets and decorations on it. And the gentleman's going to have this for his dress belt. There will be pictures of the finished product on my Instagram and my Facebook at Save It Outdoors Survival. And it'll probably be, if you look it up, it'll be, you know, how to dye leather white or something. So, if you want to know how to dye your leather white, check out this video. If it doesn't work out for you, message me. I'll walk you through it. I appreciate the love and support. All right, y'all. God bless now. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy yourself. Bye. Russell, where you going? I just took you outside. Oh, let me stop this camera. Y'all take care.